Father in heaven, we thank you so much that the heavens declare your glory. And what a delight it is to speak with our brother, your servant Jim Burr, today, again, about your creation and your power, to understand the beauty of heaven, to understand also the nature of this earth's history and some of the difficult questions. So we ask for your blessing and your guidance as we have this conversation. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, Brother Jim, I know you're going to talk about dinosaurs in this program, and that's a topic I know you get a lot of questions about, especially families with children. How do we navigate this, or just anybody interested in? I'm in the natural sciences in university, and there's this version of history, and I read this in the Bible. If you're Seventh Day Adventist Christian, you're understanding things from a creationist viewpoint, and you're going to help us navigate these difficult dinosaur questions. But first, before you go through your slides, I've heard, I think I got a leak that there's a big Jim Burr event happening in the public domain, where locally where you live, near Royal Gorge, one of the big tourist attractions. Our family's been there. We love Canyon City. We love Colorado. They've invited you to have a major presentation, a couple of them, right? 40-foot screen talking about God, the heavens of our God. I mean, I know you speak at churches. That wouldn't surprise me, but tell us about this public event that you've got lined up.
Well, we have a Rotary Club in Denver, and these are the movers and the shakers, the business people, the older retired, a lot of are retired people, business people, but they have a goodwill. They're trying to do good for their community, and so I've spoken there a few times at their luncheon every Wednesday, and I just happened to drop into a friend of mine who's been the president there for years, and I wasn't thinking it was a Wednesday, and I dropped into his office. He said, "Hey, let's go to Rotary." And so we went to Rotary, and he has been talking for 1 year. He thinks that astronomy, he's just blown away by the programs on astronomy. And he thinks that a Philharmonic orchestra, under the stars and a big screen with astronomy, but he can't figure out, well, he's been talking for a year. Where could we do this? Where could we do this in the city? And the last Wednesday, he said, well, we got this winery over here. They'd have room for us to do it. So we go to the luncheon, the Rotary Club luncheon, and sitting right next to me is the manager of Royal Gorge. Now, Royal Gorge is like, 1,500 feet deep. They've got a gondola that goes across. You can ride it on a zip line. They've got a lot of activities. They got this humongous bridge. And every weekend, either Friday or Saturday night, they do a big performance. They bring in rock stars and they do family movies and all kinds of stuff. And so sitting right next to me is this guy who manages this operation. And across the street is the mayor. Across the table is the mayor. And then Coy, the guy who's invited me there, is sitting next to me. So they get to talking and discovered the guy from manager says, hey, bring it to the Royal Gorge. We got this 40-foot screen and this will be perfect. And so after they hash this over, Coy gets up and talks to the whole Rotary Club, which is usually about 35 people there. And he says, folks, how would you like to sit? Well, do I dare tell you what he said? We've got two geniuses in Canyon City. This director of the Philharmonic Orchestra is so talented, he can write the music for 40 instruments, and he can do it in less than an hour. He hand writes the music. It's his orchestra music. He's getting royalties from all over the world. And the fact that he can do that, he said he can do 40 pages of instruments in 40 minutes. Well, I don't know about that, but he may exaggerate. But then he's got the other genius here can get up and he can talk about 1,000 programs on astronomy without any notes. How would you like to sit under the stars with the Philharmonic Orchestra playing out at the gorge, at the bridge? And we've got a 40-foot screen, and Jim Burr will be talking about God and the stars on this screen while you're listening to the orchestra. And so that's kind of a pretty big deal for me.
That sure is. I mean, boy, you haven't let off the gas pedal in your best years here of ministry. I love it. And I remember when we were talking years ago, you've always had open doors in churches of various denominations even to present on this topic. So praise God for this, and people are going to be receiving the truth about this. I just love that. I want to be out there at that event. But
Well,
you take us. Go
you,
ahead.
you can go to their website and like if you go Royal Gorge events on their website, and you'll see when it's going to be coming up. And yes, Scott, I was invited to the biggest Catholic church in Denver. I spoke 20,000 members in the biggest Catholic church in Denver, and a First Baptist church. 6 weeks. The pastor says, I want you to fill my pulpit. People are excited about this astronomy. We want to do evangelism. This is First Baptist Church. And he says, after he asked me to speak the first time, he says, there people are excited. We want to do evangelism. I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks. Would you do the 9:30 service, 11 o'clock service, make an altar call?
Awesome.
6 times I went back there. So it's pretty exciting.
That is so cool. Well, give our listeners a taste of what you teach. They'll get a little bit of astronomy today, even though we're doing some history when we look at dinosaurs. But you've got a little intro into the dinosaurs. What is this? How beautiful heaven must be.
Well, yeah. First, we just see some of the beautiful pictures of the heavens, but we're told that Garden of Eden was a miniature version of heaven. People ask, what are we going to do in heaven? What heaven like? But the Garden of Eden was a miniature version of heaven. So we can say, well, what was in the Garden of Eden? What we see in the Garden of Eden, we would expect to see in heaven. And so just kind of a little fun introduction here. I thought it'd be fun to just look at a few pictures and talk about, there's a song, How Beautiful Heaven Must Be. And so we'll go to the next slide, and the verse goes like this. We read of a place that's called heaven. It's made for the pure and the free. These truths of God's word he has given. How beautiful heaven must be. And then the chorus, how beautiful heaven must be, sweet home of the happy and free, fair haven of rest for the weary. How beautiful heaven must be. Let's go to the next slide. In heaven, no dropping or pining, no wishing or for elsewhere to be. God's light is forever there shining. How beautiful heaven must be. We can go to number 3. That's Orion, picture number 3. Pure waters of life there are flowing, and all who will drink may be free. Rare jewels of splendor are glowing. How beautiful heaven must be. The next slide is number 4, a beautiful picture of a little creature that God created. Let's go to number 5, the koala bear. We think of the beauties that God has created. If we go to number 6, it's a beautiful flower garden. How beautiful heaven must be. The angels so sweetly are singing up there by the beautiful sea. Sweet chords from their gold hearts are ringing. How beautiful heaven must be. Then slide number 9, we got a picture of a giraffe. Again, the beautiful creatures God has created. Slide number 9 is just a beautiful water mountain scene. And slide number 10 is ducks. So again, the chorus, how beautiful heaven must be, sweet homes of the happy and free, fair haven of rest for the weary. How beautiful heaven must be. And let's go to the next slide, number 11, and a couple of little puppy dogs. The angels so sweetly are singing up there by the beautiful sea. Sweet chords from their gold harps are ringing. How beautiful heaven must be. And number 12 is a peacock, again, a beautiful creation of God. And then if we go to number 13 is a beautiful, beautiful flower. So the chorus again, how beautiful heaven must be, sweet home of the happy and free, fair haven of rest for the weary. How beautiful heaven must be. And the next picture, we have a beautiful scene again of what the garden might look like, the Garden of Eden, and how heaven, we're told that Garden of Eden was a miniature of heaven. Next slide is a beautiful fox. It doesn't even look real, but I've seen some of those foxes, and I think it is real. And then picture number 16, another beautiful scene, country scene. And number 17 is a horse with a lady there. all the creatures. Here's a beautiful picture from Greece. We're going to have homes in heaven. And we might even have a tree house in heaven. In fact, we are going to have a tree house in heaven, because Ellen White said, I saw the most beautiful houses that were supported by pillars. Well, you see, tree houses are always supported by pillars. And another beautiful scene of that's slide number 20, a place that I stayed when I was doing some television recording in California. And slide number 23 is a beautiful picture of a device, of object in our Milky Way galaxy. It just has a name, V838. And then we have a beautiful picture of a flower. And then the next picture is Christ, the Good Shepherd. And we'll get to meet him and all the apostles, all the people from history. And you think of the questions you get to answer, and the creator of the universe. So as you walk into heaven, let's go to slide number 24. You're greeted by something like this. There's a very interesting statement from Ellen White. She says, we cannot believe that in the Garden of Eden there were bloodthirsty beasts, ill-tempered, snarling, and vicious creatures. Boy, if this isn't T-Rex and the mean dinosaurs, I don't know what is. As I read this, what Ellen White is telling us, there were no mean dinosaurs in the Garden of Eden. Ill-tempered, bloodthirsty. They weren't there. But where do they come from? That's what we're going to investigate now and show you what happened. Evolution says they have, birds evolved from dinosaurs. I think you're going to see it's amazing when we look at the similarities here. And so this quotation came from Spirit of Prophecy, Volume 1, A Crime Before the Flood. Does that fit? Does that fit the
Oh, Jim, your point is well taken. Which of these just does not belong here?
Does that look like something God would create or something that Satan would create? Let's go to the next slide, which is slide number 25. Why would God create something so hideous? Does that look like the work of God or the work of Satan? With their oversized jaws filled with serrated teeth, the Mesozoic vertebrates seem to have excessive killing ability. And the next slide, which would be slide 26, you see another terrible picture. And, these are artist conceptions. We just have the bones, but this is not too far from the truth. And then in the next slide is number 27. And Ellen White said, the enemy rejoiced in his success in effacing the divine image from the minds of the people. Amalgamation defaced the image of God, she says. And I'll tell you where we're going with the dinosaurs. They were not in the Garden of Eden. The evidence is now overwhelming, even though it's being taught. It's being talked about on some of our media programs. They'll talk about how you could fit the dinosaurs would fit in the ark. They're talking about how they disappeared after they left the ark. Some of our schools are teaching dinosaurs were in the Garden of Eden. I think the evidence that we have today is so powerful, it's undeniable, I believe. And Scott, I hope this goes viral. I hope your people will just send this out to everybody. There's a book here, a very interesting book, and it's called Dinosaurs, the Adventist View, written by a lawyer, which is David Reed. This has been written, I think 25 years ago. I don't know that it really got much traction, but this, I believe, is right on the money. This lawyer has researched this thing, documented this to high heavens. It is amazing. It's Dinosaurs, the Adventist View. And so that's kind of where we're going today.
Yeah, take us there.
Yeah, let's go to slide number 28. And some say they were created peaceful. They were not peaceful. Jurassic Park is not far from the truth. We're going to get into the fact that they all had most of the bones or skeletons have some broken bones. And we'll get into that. But the violence of Jurassic Park was not far from the truth. The dinosaur's life was one of violence. the biggest female T-Rex. Now we're talking mean dinosaurs, okay? God did make Leviathan and Behemoth. And a behemoth, I think, could be like a brontosaurus. He's big as a house, but he eats grass like an ox.
Has a tail like a tree trunk.
Yes. And so the Bible does mention those peaceful grass-eating, creatures that are mentioned in Job 41. But we're talking this whole program. We're talking about the mean ones with these. I mean, we've got teeth here that are 10 inches long in these things. 10 inches long. They're serrated teeth that are 10 inches long to eat grass. And some creationists say, well, they could be eating grass. We'll poke holes in that. They could have been peaceful. Oh, maybe they weren't where the people were. Maybe they maybe went up to the mountains, and other people say, no, they're cold-blooded. They went down where the warm ponds were. So so they weren't around the people. Yeah, but they were there in the garden, but they weren't where the people were. Come on. Okay. Excuse me for getting too arrogant here. So their life was Sue, the biggest female T-Rex, had many injuries to her legs, her tail, her skull, her ribs. She had multiple broken bones on both sides that had tried to heal. And you see, if you break a bone and it's not set, you get a knot where your ribs try to heal. If you can see that, you get a bulge there, and they're discovering this is really common in dinosaurs. Most dinosaurs have some they weren't broken in their demise, but they were broken. They had tried to heal with knots. It must have been terribly painful.
So they'd survived some fights.
Yes. Sue had multiple broken ribs on both sides that had tried to heal. Big Al from the Morrison Foundation in Wyoming had 19 skeletal abnormalities. Most dinosaurs seem to have broken and rehealed bone injuries. So there was violence there. They weren't peaceful. There was violence there. I'm going now to slide number 29. Why would God create something so hideous? Does this look like the work of God or the work of Satan? That's a repeat. We had that slide already. Let's go to slide number 20. And here you see, if the dinosaurs had been permitted to continue living, they were destroyed in the flood. If they had been continued, we would not see giraffes and horses and cows. It is really interesting. I don't have a number. How many dinosaurs are there, bones, skeletons, all over the world? I don't think there's a mammal that can compete with the number. We're talking millions and millions of dinosaurs. How come there aren't very many, cows and horses in the fossil record and giraffes? It seems like the population of dinosaurs, it seems like the dinosaurs had actually diminished the population of the creatures God had created.
Wow, they were taking over the planet.
Yeah, if you look in this book, Dinosaurs: An Adventist View, he's going to go into that. I mean, his research is, you know how many pages he's got here? He's got 600 pages, highly documented. But I don't think it's gotten much traction because I don't hear, this has been around for some time.
Well, I liked your call to action, Jim. People should share this video because I believe that what you are sharing is truth. I've believed it since before I knew you because I read Spirit of Prophecy, and I think that lays it out pretty clearly. But keep going.
Yeah, we got a lot more to go. Okay, T-Rex was the ultimate killing machine. Now, if we look at Genesis 6, the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. The Lord said, I will destroy man. I have created both from the face of the earth, both man and beast. God saw how corrupt the earth was. Every creature had corrupted its way on the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them from the earth. In Psalm 11, it talks about that. It says, the Lord tests the righteous and the wicked, and the one who loves violence, his whole soul hates. God hates violence. T-Rex was these mean violence. It was nothing but violence. Or not that I see nothing but violence.
Jim, do you see something different in the lion and the tiger and some of the predatory mammals or sharks, other predatory animals?
The lion is talked about in the Bible. In heaven, the lion's going to eat straw like an ox. There's some, you can research this. There's some evidence that lions will be, can survive as a vegetarian. I don't have more information on that, but I think alligators, come into this. I don't think alligators or crocodiles were in the Garden of Eden. Okay, we'll get to that later. But Jack Fortune says that it was the most savage killer ever to have walked the earth, T-Rex, with teeth that could have sliced through steel, with 7,000-pound jaws that could have crushed a car.
Wow.
If we go to our next slide, which is number 32, I will give peace. This is kind of interesting, but it shows that God doesn't want violence. He wants peace. He loves peace. He hates violence. And all you can see from these mean ones is violence. I will give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid, and I will rid evil beasts out of the land. Leviticus 26:6. God says God's ways are peaceful. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. Isaiah 11:9. That's, I think, in heaven. So we're not going to have any dinosaurs there. The wolf will live with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the young lion, and the fatling will be together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will graze with the bear. Their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like an ox. The infant will play by the cobra's den, and the toddler will reach into the viper's nest. Isaiah 11:69.
Well, you had the answer to my question ready to go in the PowerPoint. I mean, God owns those ones because he made them. He's going to restore them to their original design.
So I'm on slide 33. You have the text on the screen. On that day, I will make a covenant with the beasts of the field. Let me enlarge this a little bit here. And the birds of the air and the creatures that crawl on the ground. And I will abolish bow and sword and battle in the land, and will make them lie down safely. I will make them a covenant of peace and rid the land of wild beasts, so that they may dwell securely in the wilderness and sleep in the forest. And some of these dinosaurs have spikes on their tails in this slide, and we're on slide number 34, but let's go to 35. You see the Stegosaurus has a tail that he could whip around. Some of them have like a ball on the end, and this is seen as violence again because it could be used in defense or in attacking something. So just really weird creatures. Here's one with a ball. Now we're on slide 36. Look at that creature, ugly creature. In the Garden of Eden, does that match anything you've seen this morning and this afternoon in the Garden of Eden? And Genesis 6:6. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of mankind was great on the earth, that every intent and thought of their hearts was only evil continually. So God told Adam, did God tell Adam to do something that's impossible to do, be impossible for him to do?
No.
If T-Rex was in the Garden of Eden, yes. God said, have dominion over every creature. Over T-Rex, no way. So I've got a rocket-propelled grenade. The ballistics people tell us an AK-47 would not bring down a 20,000-pound T-Rex. You got a 50-50 chance. God said have dominion over all the animals, over all the creatures. That is not possible if these mean dinosaurs were in the Garden of Eden. There's no way. There's no way. I don't think that Adam had an AK-47 or a rocket RPG.
It's interesting too. Post flood, the fear of man is in all the animals. That provides a contrast potentially to what was before the flood, where not all the animals actually had that fear of man.
Hey, that's a good point. I never thought of that one before. Wow, that is good. So God would have had orientation in orientation 101 in the Garden of Eden. Uh, Adam and Eve, let me tell you, you better not don't leave home without this. Eve, you better stay close to Adam because these guys are bad, folks. I think you see where we're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Did God tell Adam to do something was impossible for him to do? I believe it would be impossible for him to have dominion. What does dominion mean? It didn't defend himself, but have dominion, to be able to control. Wouldn't that mean you harness him up and ride him and so forth, have dominion over the animals? It's not possible, I think you'll see. So now we're going to go to slide number 38. And it's interesting, reptiles never stop growing. The Bible talks about behemoth and Leviathan many times, but they eat grass like an ox. He talks about behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. Its tail is like a cedar tree. It has thighs. His thighs are thick. His bones are like bronze. He eats grass like an ox. So two creatures that are mentioned there in Job 41. And then let's go to this one is slide 39. We just have a text here. Some Christians say God could have created them to eat grass with 60 teeth. Okay, let's look at the grass eaters. These are the creatures they only have teeth on the bottom, and they're designed. They're all that way. They have grinders and molars, but the teeth on the bottom are designed for eating grass. And so you got the deer, the elk, the bison, the sheep, the goats, the camels, the llamas, alpacas, gurus, the giraffe, the musk ox, the buffalo, rhinoceros, pronghorn, reindeers, cows. They all eat grass like an ox. T-Rex, folks, with 10-inch teeth, serrated teeth. There's no way he'd starve.
Yeah, Creation Museum realizes that, and I love Creation Museum, but they're really stretching on this point, and they have the T-Rex's teeth for opening a watermelon to crack the watermelon.
Okay, well, we're just getting started, Scott. Wait to see this one.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go. I'm going to skip a slide. Let's go to 42, and then we'll come back to 41. That's kind of out of place. Let's go to 42. Up in the Hell Creek Formation in Montana is an area where they're just getting a lot of dinosaur bones. And this picture that you see, picture 42, is a femur of a dinosaur, and that weighs, I don't think it weighs 1,000 pounds, but it is really heavy. And Dr. Schweitzer's there, Barry Schweitzer's there, and Dr. Jack Horner are there as they're going to protect this thing. They're wrapping it in plaster to protect it. Any scratches on this thing, it's. But Barry Schweitzer says to Dr. Horner, I want to know, I got an electric drill, battery operated drill. Can I drill? I want to see what's inside that femur. And Jack Horner freaks out, says, no way, no paleontologist in their right mind is going to deface this sacred treasure of humanity. You are not going to drill that. So they wrap this thing in plaster, carefully wrapping it, protecting it. Then they put a sling around it. Then they get a Chinook helicopter. That'll lift 50, 60 soldiers, that Chinook. So they bring it out of this quarry, out of this mine, and guess what? It fell out of the sling and broke.
Okay. Maybe God was involved with that?
Oh, I wonder. Yep. and Horner says, okay, you can get your sample. Let's go back a slide. That one is out of, you'll see the cracks in there. This is the one that slipped out of the sling and broke, and they tried to glue it back together. But Mary Schweitzer was able to get it to check this thing out inside. And now if we go to slide number 43, you'll see the hemoglobin. She discovered hemoglobin in a bone, a rock that's supposed to be 65 million years old. Red blood cells and hemoglobin. So this bone is not 65 million years old. Dr. Schweitzer and her team identified red blood cells and hemoglobin and fragments of collagen in the tissue of the T-Rex femur. That's MOR 1125 is what the designation is. Evolutionary scientists claim it's impossible, and they would never believe that soft tissue could be from T-Rex because the fossil was 65 million years old. Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Let's go to the next slide. On slide 14, carbon 14. There are 20 bones that were sent out for testing. And they went to CAIS, the Center for Applied Isotope Studies, and they tested them, and they proved they're not 65 million years old. But CAIS was not told that they were dinosaur bones. They got a letter back from CAIS. The scientists at CAIS and I are dismayed by the claims that you and your team have made with respect to the age of the Earth and the validity of biological evolution. Consequently, we are no longer able to provide radiocarbon services in support of your anti-scientific agenda. Carbon 14's anti-scientific?
Yeah, we will no longer do the scientific method, you anti-science creationists.
And that's the Center for Applied Isotope Studies at the University of Georgia. I have instructed the radiocarbon lab to return your recent samples to you and not to accept any future samples for analysis. You can find that at mike@newgeology.us. When we look at there's 10 similarities between birds and dinosaurs. 10 similarities. It's all, and this is from the curator of the American Museum of Natural History, Mike Norrell. Mike Norrell says, it is almost indisputable birds are dinosaurs. You could argue that we still live in an age of dinosaurs. I've seen articles that said that you ate a dinosaur for Thanksgiving dinner, that birds are dinosaurs. And
this blew me away. You shared this with me a month or two ago, and I'm like, wait, what? I didn't learn that in school.
Dinosaurs are classified as reptiles, while many appear closer to the birds than reptiles. Let me just tell you a little bit. What has been going on here is genetic engineering, GMO. The dinosaur, the mean dinosaurs were GMO, genetically engineered. Birds, alligators, crocodiles, turtles, ducks, chickens, all types of things. You're going to see 40 similarities between birds and dinosaurs. And that's why evolution says birds evolved from dinosaurs, because they had taken the lizards all lay eggs, the birds lay eggs. This is much easier than trying to take an ovum out of a mammal and doctor it in the lab and put it back in and have her carry. These eggs are going to hatch. And they had the ability to do, as you're going to see, to do DNA splicing, DNA.
You're talking they before the flood, the antediluvian people were doing genetic engineering. So when you say Satan created this, you're talking about these human beings as agents of Satan.
Exactly. And so we're not saying these animals mated together. It's not a sexual thing. It is because they're able to go in and move genes from one organism to another. You'll see a statement that says there's practically no limit to the extreme you can go by genetic engineering. But so it's not breeding animals, but it's genetic engineering, and it's across the board. It's almost all eggs. So wow. 10 similarities with birds and dinosaurs. So you see why they say we think, dinosaurs evolved into birds. And so if we go to the next slide, which is slide number 46, you'll see an illustration here of the different creatures, the birds that have affected the amalgamation, the GMO of dinosaurs. You take a look at parrot. Number one, we have dinosaurs that have a beak just like a parrot. Look at number two. They have necks and legs like ostriches. Number three, we got duck-billed dinosaurs. Number four, we got dinosaurs with webbed feet like a duck. Number 5, they laid eggs and they slept in the same position that birds do. Number 6, dinosaurs. Some of the dinosaurs have wishbones. Does a cow have a wishbone? A sheep? A goat? A horse? They got bird wishbones like a bird. Their bones are structured like a bird, where the bird bone has to be hollow. And so they have an internal structure that gives them strength so they can fly with a very light bone. It's the same thing we see in dinosaurs. Number 8, you see a cassowary bird that has a bone on their head. Well, guess what? Triceratops has this great big bone across his head. So you see the similarity there. I found 40 different similarities between dinosaurs and birds, and or alligators and turtles and so forth. Here you see number 9, an alligator. You see the tail and the mouth. It reminds you of T-Rex. And the shape here, number 10, again, you see the shape there of the ostrich. Number 11, would you believe they have rocks? They have dinosaurs. Some of the dinosaurs have gizzards, like a bird. Bird eats rocks. Birds don't chew food. They eat rocks, and the rocks grind up in their gizzard. It grinds up the food so they can nourish it. And number 12, we have 3-toed dinosaurs that have a tail coming out the back, just like chickens do. And then if we look at the DNA, the similarities there between chromosomes are very similar. The DNA is very similar. You see down here number 15, like the hippopotamus, and blood vessels, like ostriches, are similar. Mary Schweitzer, I think, said that the ostriches were just like the birds. So that's some of the similarities we've seen. There's more similarities out there, but
yeah, you got 40. You're just giving us a teaser.
Yeah.
So the sin here was, God intended for creatures to reproduce after their kind.
Right.
Man intervenes with genetic engineering to overrule God's created order and invent their own anti-creation inventions. I don't want to say created. It seems to take away God's prerogative. But whatever you'd call this, hijacking, usurping this power.
And not only that, Scott, the Bible tells us that as in the days of Noah, it's going to be before Christ comes. We are doing exactly, you're going to see as we go along here, we're doing today what they did before the flood.
Amalgamations.
Yes, you're going to see that coming up. So let's move along here. Okay, so we're now on slide number 47, and Dr. Jack Horner is about to create a Chickenosaurus, a dinosaur from a chicken egg. Renowned paleontologist Jack Horner describes his plan to recreate dinosaurs by genetically nudging the DNA of a chicken, calling it Chickenosaurus. You see the picture there at number 46. Let's go to, okay, something's missing here because I have his book. I'm supposed to have that on the screen. It's gone. I don't have it here, okay? If you're on the same slide, I have the Chickenosaurus. I assume you had that one. The next slide is number 48. But yeah, I have two of Dr. Jack Horner's book, How You Make a Dinosaur from a Chicken Egg. And he says the most difficult thing to do is the tail. But right now, Harvard and Yale have put teeth back in chickens. Harvard and Yale have been working on this. They can actually put teeth back in the chicken.
That's an abomination.
Trying to recreate dinosaurs from a chicken egg. Dr. Jack Horner is working on it. He says the tail is the most difficult thing. He says we're going to go in and identify the genes in a gecko that make the tail. We put that in, and we got Chickenosaurus, dinosaur.
What do you think they're doing that they're not announcing? I don't want to speculate, but from what they show us, there's got to be an order of magnitude greater depth of perversion.
Yes. You see, in China, some of these countries where they don't have laws, we have laws here in the U.S. as to how far they can go with this, and they have to destroy them. They can't bring them to term fully. They're doing a lot of experimenting, but the country, China, is one, and I think the UK is very liberal, where they're able to do all sorts of stuff with genetic engineering, and hardly anybody knows it. So I've got a picture here after the Chickenosaurus. We're the next slide, which is slide 48. And the antediluvians were advanced in many ways. Mysteries so advanced, many think the only way to explain the unexplainable is aliens from other planets did it. I mean, whether you're looking at the pyramids, whether you're looking at Machu Picchu, whether you're looking at Easter Island, all around we see stuff we can't do today. There are rocks in Bolivia, I believe it is, where rocks that weigh 4,000. What is it? A diesel weighs 200,000 pounds. They have 400,000 pound rocks that have been moved to 12,000 foot altitude. We don't have a way to lift. I think it's 400,000 pounds. These rocks are, and they're put together like they were cut with a laser. Some of these rocks are so tight together you can't put a business card between them. How did they do that technology? We have no idea how they did it.
Jim, do you have a program, or could you put together a program on ancient technology and explaining it from a biblical perspective? Because this is kind of a popular thing out there. There have been recent discoveries in Egypt, and a lot of people are talking about these things. We should discuss that, you and I, sometime, where you show the antediluvian origins of these things rather than the alien or mysteries and just kind of intriguing things for pop culture. What's the biblical answer to these?
Yeah, I could work on that. Something else, Scott. There are people out there 1,000 times smarter than I am. Okay, and these people think I don't. Some of these people think I don't have any business talking about this because I don't have the degrees that they do. But so I'm a generalist, okay, and I'm looking at the general. Some of these subjects that people are so like DNA, they're into so deep. The average person on the street can, it kind of rolls their eyes. What do they get out of it? But a generalist can look at the big picture, and I think give people a concept that some of the people that are so smart and in so deep and so technical, how do you follow it? So
that's why I appreciate having you on such a variety of topics. We could hit astronomy, we hit dinosaurs in the middle of. You talk about DNA, complexity of that, ancient history, technology. I mean, you invent technologies, so you got that one on your belt. But the one behind you, folks don't know who Jim Burr is, inventor of the binocular telescope, has been consultant with NASA. So yeah, we appreciate what you bring to the table, Jim. You don't have to be an ancient historian. In fact, I thought when that news came out about the Giza pyramids complex, I was like, I want to talk to Jim Burr about that. So it's like, I know you don't have a specialty or a degree in Egyptian history or anything, but you probably know more about that. Or if you set your mind to it for a period of time like you do, just kind of mastermind that topic for a time and then move on to the next. And you have a collage, a whole collection of things we can discuss. This is why our viewers like having you back again and again.
Well, something funny happened here. I should turn my phone off. We have Good News Television in Denver. I happen to be on the board, and I'm getting all the phone calls from good viewers. And we had, since I've been answering the phone, we had 16 people where I could find an Adventist church. But the other day we got this guy on, and he's overeducated. He's a lawyer, and he has, I think, 3 master's degrees. But he calls me up, 2 or 3 times a week. I saw this program and that program. We're talking about stuff. And the other day he called me up, and I said, you are so educated. I have to get a dictionary because I can't figure out what you're telling me, all this fancy language you use. remember, I said, remember, I'm not educated. And he says, don't tell anybody you're not educated. He says, you'll spoil the illusion that you're a rocket scientist. So let's
Nice.
continue. Johnny comes home with a book, How to Make a Dino from a Chicken Egg. I forgot to bring my book. I got two of them. Okay. How to Make a Dinosaur from a Chicken Egg. What do you tell Johnny? You tell Johnny the mean dinosaurs like T-Rex were not in the Garden of Eden. They were not on the ark. They were GMO, lizards, ostriches, alligators, all kinds of birds, alligators, and so forth. Okay, that's what you tell Johnny.
So some of the nice, what's called dinosaurs may have been on the ark, may have been creations of God. Lizards.
Yeah. Yes, right. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's go to the next slide, which is slide number 49. And this it comes out of Japan 2019. That picture is probably Photoshop. That's probably not what they did, but read what they're doing. Headlines: Human-animal hybrids are now legal to grow in Japan. The Japanese government has granted its approval for the University of Tokyo to proceed with controversial stem cell research projects that aims to develop human-animal Frankenstein hybrid creatures from embryo to life. As of August 12, 2019. You can find that in nature.com, reported that. Okay, scientists claim they can now use gene editing technique to create smarter monkeys by making their brains more human-like. Guess where this comes from? MIT, Technology Review. This is MIT. This is not just, stuff you're reading on the internet. Scientists claim they can now use gene editing techniques to create smarter monkeys, by using their brains more human-like.
So God brought a flood in part to bring an end to this. He's going to bring fire to bring an end to it again.
Yep. Matthew 24:37 says, as in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming of the Son of Man. So you see, as we're saying, before the flood, they were doing GMO amalgamations, genetic engineering. Now, as in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming. We see the same thing. Dr. Horner and these guys are in Japan doing the same thing. And consider the Tower of God. It's interesting at the Tower of Babel, God says nothing will be impossible to them. Let's go down and see, was God worried about them inventing the wheel? We went from Kitty Hawk. I mean, for 6,000 years, it's been flat. Technology, they rode on horses. They communicated with their voice from Adam to Paul Revere. You see, very little change in communication, very little change in travel for all those years. But then, as it says in Daniel 12, verse 4, knowledge will be increased. Men will run to and fro. And we went from Kitty Hawk to the moon in 60 years. So we look at Stonehenge in the next slide, and we're now on slide number 51. At least I am. I think you got the same slide there. Stonehenge, these tremendous rocks that were moved from a great distance. Evolutionists say there was a Stone Age, then the Bronze Age, then the Iron Age. The Iron Age started around 1200 BC. It's interesting. The Bible says that Tubal-Cain forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron in Genesis 4. I believe great technology was lost at the time of the flood and the Tower of Babel.
That's what I want you to come back on for.
Yeah, I've cut out a lot of stuff I had in here. Ancient civilizations were extremely sophisticated and used advanced technology thousands of years before mainstream science reinvented them. Electricity, electroplating, technology, advanced engineering, including chemistry, physics, advanced forms of mathematics, and astronomy were all used thousands of years ago to a great extent. And there you see the website is ancient.co.com. So many advances. Many say it was done by aliens. Couldn't be done by us. When DNA is taken from one organism and inserted into the genome of another, there is theoretically no boundaries to the extent of change that can be accomplished. That's quite a statement. When DNA is taken from one organism and inserted into the genome of another, there is theoretically no boundaries to the extent of change that can be accomplished.
Yeah, that sounds like how God described the Babel builders.
Yeah. Mixing of genetically different tissue. Gene splicing is a technique used in genetic engineering. Scientists fearlessly create bizarre human-animal hybrids, cow-human hybrids, pig-human hybrids, and even real mouse-human hybrids. This is happening every single day in labs all over the Western world, but most people have never heard of it. And there's another scripture in Luke. This was the same one I had before in Matthew, but same words in Luke. As in the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So there's theoretically no limit of what they can do, what they're able to do. So let's go to the next slide, and that we would be on slide 54 now. Kind of an interesting picture there of a T-Rex. They've shot arrows at him, trying to control him. Once again, God said, have dominion over the animals. If T-Rex was in the garden, tell me how. That God told Adam to do something he could not possibly do, have dominion over a creature like that. Biblical creationists have a serious problem. They often claim that dinosaurs were on the ark and later died off for one reason or another, the temperature, the weather, the climate, whatever, they died off. But they all put them on the ark. But there are no remains of species. Now, if they were on the ark, we would expect to see remains of these creatures post-flood in the post-flood rocks. Why then are there no remains of these hundreds of species, mean dinosaurs, okay, found in any post-flood rocks? We have, this came again from the book Dinosaurs and Adventist View, where he says we have hundreds of species. You know, we got the woolly mammoths, we got creatures like that we see in the post-flood rocks. The dinosaurs were destroyed before the flood, and we don't see any dinosaurs in the post-flood rocks. There's none there. If they were on the ark, they should have lived. We should see some of them in the rocks. So the GMO, genetically modified, or the amalgamation theory solves this problem. Dinosaurs is classified as reptiles, while many appear closer to birds than reptiles. And once again, I believe that the reason it was so much easier to engineer. Now they had to have microscopes. They probably had electron microscopes to do this kind of stuff. It's gene editing that they were doing. But taking eggs and manipulating that would be much easier than taking an ovum from a mammal and taking it to the lab and doing some gene editing and then try to put it back in and have her carry it to gestation, but you can see how easy these eggs are going to hatch. And in a lab, I could see where it'd be much easier. And that's why I believe we see, as they were saying, they're classified as reptiles, but they appear closer to birds. Why? Because birds lay eggs. Crocodiles, alligators, they all, turtle lay eggs, even Brontosaurus, that great Brontosaurus is bigger than my house, and they eat grass like an ox, but that creature lays eggs, believe it or not. So, and then if we look at crime before the flood and spirit of prophecy, we cannot believe that in the Garden of Eden, there were bloodthirsty beasts, ill-tempered, snarling, and vicious. In the Garden of Eden, can't believe that. It's crime before the flood. Now we see a picture. By the way, I'm on slide now, number 55, and you see a dinosaur here. And Ellen White said, if there was one sin above another which called for the destruction of the race by a flood, it was the base crime of amalgamation, I would say GMO, of man and beast, which defaced the image of God and caused confusion everywhere. Spiritual Gifts, Volume 3, page 64. if there was one crime above another, which called for the destruction of the race by a flood, it was the base crime of amalgamation of man and beast. Now take a look at the hands, the shoulder, the elbow, the arms of that T-Rex. Where do they come from?
Wings?
Is that human shoulder, human elbow, human arms?
Oh, wow. So that's what defaced the image of God. I've heard people take this quote and say, well, she was talking about amalgamation of man with man, sons of God, daughters of men, intermarrying, and the amalgamation of beasts of various kinds, beasts among beasts, man among man. But it says the amalgamation of man and beast that defaced the image of God.
Yeah.
And intermarrying with the heathen, yeah, that's going to deface our character. But I've never heard that kind of language. The image of God is our created personhood. So you're looking at human, bird, genetic modifications and genetic engineering here, huh?
Yeah. In this book, The Adventist View, it's interesting because he deals with that very statement.
Yeah.
And because, and what he says in here, I'll paraphrase it because I probably can't find it. Here's an interesting one. Ellen White tells us that the antediluvians loved to destroy the lives of animals. It would not be surprising if fighting dinosaurs were designed to fight each other for the amusement of spectators. The dinosaurs' lives lived an extraordinarily violent time. But, he points out how they like to, fight cockfights and bear fights, and they love that. And many of these creatures looked like they were made for fights. They have scales on their backs and whips on their tail and all kinds of stuff.
They're made to look as scary as possible.
Yeah, that's right. But in this book, he deals with your statement because he points out that Ellen White talks about, the sons of God, Adam and Seth, and 4 chapters later, he talks about the amalgamation of man and beast. And he says, if this was, it wouldn't be 4 pages between the comments on the amalgamation or the cross marrying and so forth of the sons of God. And I can't hardly quote it, but he does in the book, he does deal with that statement. So it's interesting because evolution looks at this T-Rex and goes, where do they come from? Where those hands come from? Those arms? Where do they come from? They're useless. You can't.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't.
That doesn't look. If there was with an intelligent designer, let's create a creature that has utility, functionality to it. You don't look at those arms and think there's genius behind that of a creator God. You're looking at that. That's kind of a misfit.
You're kind of cutting out.
Oh, just keep going.
Yeah. So
yeah, take us home.
If there was one sin above another, was this base sin, and probably because they became so violent. Next slide, and that would be what number? Slide's just another picture of a dinosaur. Slide 56, and her statement again about this. She says every species of animals which God had created were preserved in the ark. The confused species which God did not create, which were the result of amalgamation, I would say GMO, hybridization, were destroyed by the flood and spiritual gifts. So she's saying, hey, the dinosaurs were all destroyed by the flood. And we see the evidence because there are no dinosaur fossil remain or in the post-flood, terrain where they dig. And so every species which God created And that's not talking about human beings. Every species which God created were preserved in the ark. The confused species which God did not create were the result of amalgamation were destroyed by the flood. So it's interesting in Leviticus 19:19, it says, obey my laws, never crossbreed different kinds of animals. And, there's a limit, of course, on what they can do with that. We have, mules and donkeys, which you can breed, but they become sterile. They can't reproduce and so forth. But anyhow, basically, Scott, that's my program on dinosaurs. And we could put in one more scripture here, Psalm 11, verse 5. The Lord tries the righteous, but the wicked and him that loves violence, his soul hates. So I think the crocodiles and alligators could have survived the flood. You see, they're water creatures. They can float. They can float on a rock, or they float on a tree or something, a limb or something. Just looking at this whole big picture, I think crocodiles and alligators were probably the result of amalgamation too.
So they're dinosaurs.
Yeah, well, I think you can look that up, and they'll claim that crocodiles are dinosaurs.
Fascinating, Jim. Man, what a great hour of history, of Bible, spirit of prophecy. Man, that last statement you shared, it's just like it ties a bow on it. And God has revealed it to us. It's clear. Yeah. He had a creation order. He is a God of peace and harmony amongst the creation that he designed. And man comes along, and here we are. One of my biggest takeaways from this program, Jim, is how near the end of time we are.
Yeah.
And that calls us to, often your programs call us to admire and worship the amazing creative handiwork of our God, the amazing creator himself, worship him. And this one is taking me personally to, whoa, they are doing the very kinds of things that if one sin above all else was the reason for the flood, God is seeing that again. And as it was in the days of Noah, he's going to cut this short. This isn't going to get out of hand. So Jesus is coming soon, friends. You're listening to this. Interesting, eye-opening. We're curious about things. God reveals. He satisfies our interests with truth, Bible truth that validates his word, that makes us dig into the spirit of prophecy books as well, seeing how did she know it early on in spiritual gifts, 1850s? This is not of human origin. The Bible record is always validated by every new discovery. And so I'm going, all right, it's urgency time, because we see the signs of the times happening. It is now, as it was in the days of Noah. Don't delay and put off the time of preparation, friends. Let's be ready for Jesus' soon coming, for the final events that are about to burst upon the world with blinding force and take many as an overwhelming surprise, who are not ready with oil in their lamps, trimmed and burning.
I hope this goes viral. I hope everybody sends it to their friends. We need it. Is there anything you can say that, it just fits and it explains, the issue. And I'm watching somebody on one of our channels, and they've got this ark, and they're talking about how the dinosaurs could fit on the ark and all this kind of stuff. But here, have we not read what she says?
Yeah,
it makes so much
we
sense.
don't have to do that.
It solves all the problems. Yeah.
Every one of them. Well, friends, thank you for joining us. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in, going the full hour, folks who are listening to this closer. And we'll see you next time. Another episode with Jim Burr, maybe on ancient technology. We'll see if I can twist his arm to do that. But for now,
take time. I need a little time to work on that.
Yeah. Take your time. I'm not saying a week from now. You got 3 weeks, no longer. No. We'll talk. We'll talk off the air. Take care, everybody. God bless.